Okay, so in this video we're going to describe the kind of riding you can expect to encounter in Sticky Forest, which is our local area bike park, and it caters to the sort of intermediate to advanced rider. There's a number of different trails in there, everything from sort of single track, flowy berm trails through to quite steep, loose descents, and then also some very large jumps in there for those that are into hitting decent sized gaps. So access to Sticky Forest, there's a number of different ways to get there. If you're riding from town, one of my favourite ways to go up there is to go via Lismore and then up through the Sker Heights track along here and approach the forest from the south. And from there, there's a number of different ways to get into the actual forest itself, which I'll cover off on a different map. If you're driving, you can either park up at one of these three car parks and then access into the forest from there. But that's more clear from this map here. So this map of Sticky Forest is on its side. So this is the southern approach that I was talking about earlier, that you can come in and then hook around to the western side of Sticky. So for example, you could go up into the forest using Hoedown, which is this track number 1 here, and you'll notice that the trail track guide here has got arrows pointing up and pointing down, which means it's both an up and a down track. Versus this one here, number 4, which is only a down track. So that's just to try and minimize the chance of crashes. So yeah, you can come up Hoedown along onto this green ridgeline track here. Alternatively, you could come further along Sker Heights track down to Venus Landing and then come up number 37, which is Cranking Fine here, which is a really nice way of getting into the forest. Lots of tricky little switchback turns on this track heading up, and a really nice lookout here. The other final way, which is a little bit tricky and especially not recommended to those that feel a bit sort of precarious with heights, is to come along the sidle track here. Now, I really like this trail because it's kind of chiseled into the side of the hill and you get really nice views out towards Dublin Bay, but some people find it a bit odd and tricky. So you can access that via that campground here in the outlet motor camp, and then come up along this trail and then up the fire trail and then along onto the sidle track. So that sidle track comes around the northern side of Sticky. You get to this junction here, at which point you can come on double and back down to Venus and then up Cranking Fine as previously talked about. So Sticky Forest itself is essentially like a large ridgeline, and you've got trails leading off either side of that ridgeline. So this ridgeline here and to some extent up here are the high points, and then your low points are down here. These blue trails here and Venus on the backside are really nice flowy single track trails with lots of berms and a smattering of jumps along the way, although those jumps are typically either tabletops or they have an easy beeline to go around, so you're not going to be sort of forced to hit any large gaps. These blacks here and these blacks over here are your sort of steeper, more technical type of blacks, aimed at those riders that like those loose, steep, rocky and rutted out kind of descents. Whereas these blacks over here are fairly straightforward from a point of view of the trail, but they're essentially a jump track. They've got some very, very large gap jumps in them. So unless you're planning on actually hitting those gaps, then there's not an awful lot to be gained from just sort of cruising down there and going around the beelines. You're better off sticking to these technical blacks if that's the sort of black run that you're after. So that's a rough outline of the kind of riding you can expect in Sticky Forest. We've got a number of other videos in this series outlining the cross-country tracks in Deansbank and the Hickaway Loop. We've got some longer distance videos about the tracks out to Glendu, Harware and Luggett, as well as some family-friendly riding videos on the outlet track. So I'll put the links to them in the description, and if you'd like to check them out, feel free to do so. So enjoy your stay and happy riding.